I first got into music, I think, like most people. I listened to it when I was a kid, just because my parents listened to music. So I listened to a lot of pop music, country music when I was a kid, classic rock as well, mostly from my dad's side. But I really got seriously into music when I was in my early teens. Ozzy Osbourne, Crazy Train, first time I ever heard that song, yeah, that was a big deal. I remember where I was coming home in the car with my family, and my dad had the radio on, and it came on, and Randy Rhoads with that sonic riff and guitar playing just blew me away. By the time we got home, I asked my dad, okay, what was that, and where can I get more of it? And he showed me Black Sabbath. And from there, I was an Ozzy guy. I had an Ozzy t-shirt that was like 3 sizes too big for me in grade 8, and it had him like biting the heads off the doves, and everyone thought I was a freak for wearing it because it was too big and it was scary, and I was like, I'll grow into it, and I did. And that was me, the Ozzy guy. And of course, well, you can't really like Ozzy without liking guitar. And my brother had rented a guitar for 30 days or whatever it was to see if it was something he'd like, and after a couple days his fingers started to hurt, and so it just kind of collected dust on the couch. So I picked it up, and I used to come home from school every day and pick it up. And next thing you know, my birthday came around, I took the money that I got and I purchased my first guitar. The rest is history. The first concert I ever attended, still to this day, might be one of the best lineups I've ever seen. I'd never actually been to a local performance before, so my first experience with real live music, outside of like the productions you would see in high school or a school, was Iron Maiden headlining with Ronnie James Dio and Motorhead for support. That was amazing. Randy Rhoads might be the reason that I picked up a guitar, but seeing Iron Maiden live was the reason I wanted to play it for a living. It was, to this day, it's still one of the best concerts I've ever seen. Okay, so the first band I was ever in was a group with a bunch of buddies from high school that we were all just getting, dabbling in our instruments. We call ourselves Whiplash after the Metallica song, and we sucked, to put it lightly. I remember the first show we ever did was at a high school talent show in front of the whole school, and drummer couldn't hear anybody, and one of the guys didn't know how to play his parts, and he was wearing a wig, and it went flying into the crowd, and it was a train wreck if I've ever seen it. I was so embarrassed afterwards, and I actually told people that I was going to quit music after that. Hung my head in shame for a while, but I didn't quit. Another funny story too is, like, we had these t-shirts made that the one guy had decided to get done. We're all like, yeah, cool, t-shirts, our own band shirts. Except for then he went and put a pretty religious line on the back, and the rest of us were like, hey, what's that all about? And he kind of like branded us as this Christian band. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but definitely not who we were. And it's because his parents were really religious and they didn't want to play in the kind of music we were, so he kind of tried to trick them with the saying on the back there. Oh man, those were the days. Don't miss them though. I'm glad I'm where I am now. Where to start? I have tons. And honestly, it's weird to say as a guy who's always been a guitar player, but a lot of my influences over the years have been vocalists. Just because I think their songwriting's great. Ozzy Osbourne is a combination of both. His guitar players have always been great, and his songwriting's great. Otherwise, I got really, really into Iron Maiden in high school. I still am. Nightwish, one of my favorite bands. Even though I don't really play their music, I never sat down and learned Nightwish songs. But otherwise, yeah, Jorn Land, love his voice. Tobias Sammet of Avantasia and Ed Guy, I think is a phenomenal songwriter, and I really like to use his stuff in my songwriting. Otherwise, as a guitar player, Zakk Wylde all the way. The way he just took the simplest stuff, like a pentatonic scale, and turned it into this brilliance. Again, I never got into the sweep picking and all the arpeggios and stuff that a lot of guys did that I played with in high school. It just sounded so soulless to me. It's just like going through the motions. So I was always a guy that was more on the blues side. And I picked up influence all over the place, whether it be AC/DC, ZZ Top, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Thin Lizzy, Boston, all the way to, Metallica and, Iron Maiden and stuff like that. So my influences are all over the place. My go-to drink. It's funny. Usually when people ask me that question when I'm actually working at a bar, they expect I'm going to make them some grand cocktail or something, or talk about this drink that I once had on some exotic bar trip. But it's really easy. Give me a glass of Lagavulin. Usually I like my scotch on the rocks, but I'll take it neat. Or a cold Guinness. People say drinks like a meal, and well, if that's the case, then I have a voracious appetite because I can put those things back really easy. Always been a whiskey or a beer guy, and that hasn't changed. So, whiskey or beer. Well, given that there's only just Bryson and I, and the fact that the band started during COVID and we don't live in the same city, the writing process is fairly straightforward. I write the songs. For the most part, I demo, I play, all the guitar parts, bass, I program some drums, do the vocals, no harmonies though, and I demo that stuff, and then I send it to Bryson, and he puts his little spin on it and ideas. And then when we went to the studio, at least to get the sound developed, that's when everybody, myself, Bryson, and Adam, start piecing together orchestration parts or ideas, and maybe we should change this, or what if you did that here. So that's good, I've been in a lot of bands where there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and in this case, it's kind of like a solo project that's not a solo project. So it's yeah. And as far as songwriting goes for me, like sometimes it's lyrics and vocal melody first. Sometimes it's a guitar riff. Usually now it's vocals more than guitar. Used to be a riff guy, but now it's more like if the song needs it, the song needs it. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Okay, well, the band name originally was going to be Murderous Crows. The play on words, pretty poetic. I'm a big fan of poetry myself, And also it was kind of like a joke. Simpsons, like Bryce and I are both huge Simpsons fans, and there's that joke about like, hey, this ain't no crowbar, and then picture the crows sitting at the bar. That was going to be the kind of the running joke, but just before we went into the studio, we found out that some guy in the UK had it, and we didn't want to risk it. So we were like, okay, well, we had all our artwork and imagery and everything done for the band at that point. We thought we had the name clear, and so we just had to come up with a new title. And Murderous, Stone Cold, and it just kind of rolled off the tongue. So we didn't really have a lot of time to overthink it, and so that's what we went with. Mostly based around the art concept. Well, and again, we can't play live during COVID, and even if we could, to be honest with you, between Bryson and myself, there's a lot of creative control differences that go on in bands that have a lot of members, especially given that I'm writing most of the music. It doesn't really make sense to add other guys that you're just going to have to split everything. There's going to be creative fights, there's going to be fights over money, there's going to be all sorts of stuff. So having two guys in the band that work really well together and we seem to always be on the same page, it's just a lot easier to get things done. And eventually when we do go play live, we'll hire some guys to fill out the rest of the band, and if we find that there's chemistry there, then we'll probably, form a band. But for now, it's just a lot easier being kind of like my way or the highway, and we write the songs and get it done, and that's it. It's just easier. I think just like a case of, every male singer I've ever met in a rock band, it's just a case of somebody's got to do it. I'm not against, I like singing. I've always considered myself a guitar player first, but in the case of, getting a band together, especially during COVID times, and it was just like, well, I got to sing because there's nobody else here to record vocals on the tracks. And, after watching this Hired Guns documentary and seeing guys like Alice Cooper talk about their role versus a hired gun, and it was like, yeah, you're the face of the band, man. Like, nobody knows who the other guys are sometimes, and if it's gonna be my music, why shouldn't I sing it? That way, if there happens to be a dispute down the road and somebody leaves the band, that's the singer that's singing my songs, you know, the fans aren't going to be like, well, the band's not the same because so-and-so ain't there. It's like, this is my music, so it might as well be my voice. And Bryson's voice actually complements it really well, so the two of us work together. And I'm pretty happy with it so far. Alright, well, as you might know, Before the Devil Knows We're Dead, our debut single, is coming out on April 30th, available on all streaming platforms. So check that out, save it to your playlists, share it with your friends. We hope you like it. But afterwards, we're going back to the studio. Our first studio time got cut short thanks to a lockdown, and we might actually have to miss the second one as well because we're in a lockdown right now. But hopefully not, because we do have a lot more music to bring you guys, and we're really excited for this thing to kick off.